how you navigate through this world, you're going to spend money according to how you feel.
Hey guys, welcome back to the First Hustle Then Brunch podcast. Today I'm speaking with Dyana King. Dyana is the founder of Money Boss Mama LLC and a single mom of two. Dyana helps single moms living paycheck to paycheck and weighed down by debt gain control of their emotional spending so they can pay off debt and fully fund their savings. Hey Dyana, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so excited to have you. So before we get started, can you give us an overview of your money story and how you got to where you are today?
Yes. So I always say that I found myself in the personal finance community by accident. So my first debt ever was an auto loan, and I got it when I was working as a Sonic car hop. And I knew nothing about interest rates. I knew nothing really about loans in general, credit, none of that. But obviously,
Mm-hmm.
everything goes into that process. And so basically, I got trapped with an auto loan that took up one of my paychecks. And so when I had my firstborn, I had her a month after I turned 21. So I had a lot of growing to do, even still. But it became a huge problem whenever I'm giving up one paycheck, but now I have a child to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that I needed to get this dang auto loan paid down or paid off in general. They wouldn't let me give the car back. And even from a young age,
If only it was that easy.
yeah. And I'm going to keep it real. Like there was one time I was like, I'm just going to park it at the dealership and leave. Like I need this, I need this car note gone. But I knew that I needed to get it paid off. And even still, I knew credit was going to play a huge role in the future. So I didn't want to take a voluntary repo. So I went on good old Google. Okay. Good old Google. And I basically taught myself about the best ways to pay off debt. And you start looking at one article and there's a bunch of jargon in there. You don't know what it means. So you have to go and
Yeah.
Google this. And then it takes you to what's an interest rate or how do I improve my credit score if it says I need to do this to refinance. And basically, little by little, I was teaching myself unknowingly how to become financially stable.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like most people's experience starts out with their own personal testimony. So, yeah, so you said you were researching strategies to pay off debt and you figured out a system that worked for you. So, what strategies did you use to pay off your debt and how did that help increase your net worth?
Yeah, so I will say that I've kind of ping ponged between a few strategies, just depending on the season that I was in when it came to my debt free journey. I realized that you go through this process in seasons, and so you have to pick a method that aligns with where your behavior is as you're paying off debt. So I started off paying the debt that was causing me like the most distress, which
Mm.
was my auto loan. So I didn't have much money, as I stated. So I started by putting like an extra $20, $30 towards this auto loan. And even though it's easy to disregard that $20, $30, you're building the habit of sending extra money over the minimum payment, which eventually is going to start up a snowball.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I'm knocking this debt down, and now, mind you, I'm still increasing my financial literacy. So I get it refinanced after I improve my credit score finally, got it dropped down by $100
Oh, nice.
and a 2% interest rate, because that was my main thing. I had learned about how an interest rate impacts your payment and ability to pay it off. And then I switched to what's called the snowball method. And
Okay.
that is when you start with the lowest debt balance. And that just helps you to stay motivated because
Mm-hmm.
it's it's a journey.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
journey
Oh, I
and
know.
and it sucks. And it's like you want to pay for other things that you want. You don't want to send all your extra money to debt. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was the season that I was in after I got, my auto loan or car payment lowered. Then I had to go into I'm ready to quit. I need to find something that's going to keep me motivated. So I stayed with the snowball method until the last year of my journey. It took me 4 years in total to pay off debt. And
Okay.
then by that time, I was in the game. Oh, 3 years. So I had built up that consistency and discipline. Then I switched to the avalanche method, which is when you just pay off the debt with the highest interest rate, and that ultimately saves you the most time.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said, you figured out a strategy that worked for you. You tried a few different ones because there is a lot of noise out there as far as which one is the right one. And there actually is not a right one. It's whichever one's going to keep you motivated and consistent.
Exactly.
So I've done the same thing with I have mostly student loans as far as debt goes, and snowballed a lot of it. And now I'm at the point where, I think I'm going to focus more on the avalanche method just because I want to save more money. And also it tends to save time as well. So yeah, that's what I'm planning on doing moving forward. So I know you mentioned that you didn't have much money and you were a new mom. So I'm curious, what would you say to someone who feels like they aren't making enough money to reach their financial goals? Because you clearly were able to do so.
I would say you have to separate yourself from where you think you should be. That's the main thing. Otherwise, you're going to continue to feel like you're behind, and you're going to continue to disrespect the amounts that you're able to apply to your debts and other financial obligations. I literally had to separate myself from my emotions. Yes, I felt like, I should have been able to do XYZ, but the truth of the matter was I wasn't able to do it. I didn't have that. And I would also say that you have to learn that your journey is your journey. You have to accept that your journey is your journey. It's easy to know, but it's harder to accept that.
Yeah.
And then once you accept that, you're not so quick to compare yourself to other people. Because I was in the beginning, before I joined Instagram, I felt like I was the black swan. I didn't have a two-income household. I wasn't making tons of money from a blog or, a YouTube channel. And so when I would go and try to find motivation or sources of inspiration, I would often just click out of the post or click out of the video because I didn't see myself in them. So I had to learn to really turn into myself and realize that my best was my best. My journey is my journey, and I'm going to forever be right on time. As long as I'm consistent, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Something's going to eventually happen, even if it's just $10 applied to your debts. You're still creating a snowball effect. It's going to eventually break free. And then you're going to start seeing things happening a lot faster. But I would say start with where you are, realize this is your starting point. It's not going to look like the end result, and just continue to do your best.
Yeah, I like what you said earlier about it being a habit, because we think of habits often as either good, like working out, frequently eating the right foods, or bad habits. But I feel like most people don't think about paying $20 extra a month towards some debt as a habit that builds over time. So yeah, that's super important and a good way to think about it. Yeah, so at what process in your debt payoff journey did you create your Instagram account?
I created my Instagram when I was halfway through my journey. So I was about 2.5 years in, right at the 2-year mark. I realized that as I'm going to good old Google, teaching myself that I needed to speak up for the women that looked like me in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was the single black mom that did not have a high income, and their tips, I wasn't able to use them. It just wasn't going to apply to my life. And so I felt this need that I need to step up and go to Instagram to share my story. I said no for the first 2 years, but eventually, I'm just going to do it scared because someone out here needs this information. And I was starving for community, because community, I don't think that we realize how important it is during this process. It's already lonely. Like, who's on a debt-free journey?
Right. Yeah, well, it's a surprise, but most people, but no one talks about it. So yeah, you're right.
I find that a lot of people want to pay off debt, but they're not actively on the journey as far as consistency. They're just kind of stuck in I want to start, but I don't know how to start, so I'm just going to stay in the I don't know how to start phase. And so when I came to Instagram, I didn't expect anyone to really, I didn't expect it to pop the way that it did, but that let me know that there was a huge need for someone like me on a single income to speak up and help guide the other women through this community.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of had a similar experience, doing the research, finding a lot of couples or older white men that were giving advice. And it's like, this doesn't really relate to me. I'm like fresh out of college, living on my own, no kids, no husband, nothing like that. So, yeah, I think it's really important to go ahead and share your story because there's so many different perspectives out here. And when people see you accomplish something as great as paying off debt as a single mom, they know that it's possible for them too. Yeah, we need more of that out there. So thank you for being so transparent and sharing your story. I know you teach people how to improve their finances using a behavior-based budget. Can you explain exactly what that means?
Okay, so when you hear the word budget, I find that a lot of people's skin crawls.
Yeah.
They don't want to do it. You hear the word budget because it has such a negative connotation.
Hmm.
Everyone assumes that you're broke, you can't have fun on a budget, but basically it's just you giving your money a plan. So I
Exactly.
like to
Yeah.
kind of weasel my way in and kind of trick people into getting on a budget by saying spending plan because they just process it differently.
Hmm.
And so I realized with me, because I started my journey on a budget, one thing that really helped me be consistent was molding my budget to fit my behavior in my current season. Mindset is extremely important
Mm.
when it comes to anything in life, but especially your finances, because your finances plays a huge role in your life
Yeah.
and how you navigate through this world. You're going to spend money according to how you feel
Mm.
and your principles, your beliefs, and all of that. So I found that one way to help you stay consistent, since everyone starts the budget and falls off the bandwagon, is to include things that are going to help you stay motivated. So if you're someone that likes to eat out and you try to take it out of your budget, you're not going to stick to it.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
who wants to follow a plan that they don't like? You want to spend money the way that you want to spend money. And so to kind of meet yourself halfway between treat yourself and responsibility, you add in what you love to help you maintain that discipline and consistency. Because if you do it right, all of your bills are being paid,
Yeah.
all of your debts are being paid, and you still found a way to include what you enjoyed in that budget. It may not be the amount that you were originally spending,
Hmm.
but it's still in there and it still fits, and you have the peace of mind of knowing that I paid for this combo meal, but it was in my budget. My bills are still paid and I'm still making progress on my goals.
Mm.
And so that's what I tend to focus on, not so much this is a budget, this is you have to stick to it, da 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 da. These are how this is the way in which you stick to it. It's okay, how can we create this spending plan to reflect you? Because it has to be unique to you and who you are.
Yeah. I really like that because I'm definitely the type of person that still wants to enjoy the finer things of life,
Hmm.
eating out, traveling. That's pretty much my main thing is I will spend money on travel. So yeah, you can still accomplish your financial goals while also enjoying the things that you love. And I think that's super important. Is there a particular budget strategy? I know there's so many like 50-20-30, or, there's all these different ways to organize your money. Is there a specific one that you like to follow or recommend?
So I'm a bit of a rebel on that.
Hey, go for it. I love being rebel.
So I find that, like, what do they say? The 50-30, I don't even
Yeah,
know.
50-30-20.
50-30-20,
Yeah.
that whole thing, I
Hmm.
just kind of tend to throw that out the window
Yeah.
because if you're coming into it, your income and your expenses may not fit in that.
Hmm.
You're going to try to kill yourself, drive yourself crazy trying to fit this
Yeah.
amount into 50%, this amount into 20%, this amount into whatever else. So my main thing is it has to be unique to your financial situation, because a lot of times we go online and we're trying to copy and paste someone else's
Hmm.
because, well, hell, it's working for them.
Yeah.
So let me try to make it work for me. And then we wind up getting disappointed. And then when you come over budget, you think that, oh, budgeting doesn't work for me.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I hear that so often. I tried it. It doesn't work for me. I can't stay consistent. That's because you didn't make it unique to your personal financial situation.
Mm.
And so for me, I just say list out your expenses, list out your income, know your goals going into it, mold it around your behavior and your main goal, and that is your budget. And
Yeah.
it's going to change. It's going to always change. I'm sure you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to always change, but there's not one way. There's not a one method that's going to just change your finances. You've got to just use what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Similar along those lines, I guess, the platform that you use to manage your budget, whether you write it down, use an app, spreadsheets, I feel like that also depends on the person as well,
Hmm.
because some people are definitely more pen to paper. I've tried all the apps, I've tried spreadsheets, and it's not for me.
Yeah. If you're
Honestly,
not a
so.
tech savvy person, I've had clients, they're like trying to make these apps work for them. They're like,
Hmm.
well, I'm paying the subscription. And I'm like, yeah, but you're more so a pen and paper type of person because
Hmm.
you have to be careful with the apps. It kind of takes the you being hands on out of it because the app
That's what
does
it
it
does
for
to
you.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
It's like invisible money, like just
exactly.
spending,
And so
spending.
kind of like when you're swiping a debit card, you
Yeah.
don't even realize what's happening on the back end because it's you're not being hands on with it. So if pen and paper, a spreadsheet, you have to I guess trial and error. It's all trial and
Yeah.
error.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I know you talk a lot about being an emotional spender and, how you can identify whether or not you are an emotional spender. So if someone, well, first, I guess, how can someone tell that they're an emotional spender? And then how can they fix that habit?
Oh man. So if you are consistently spending money on something that was unplanned, like you had this intense itch and need to get this something based on impulse, and then when you get it, you find out you don't want it or it comes with buyer's
Mm,
remorse, you're more than likely suffering from emotional spending. And
that's
so,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. And what I find is that the majority of my audience, they're emotional spenders.
Hmm.
Because once again, your mindset plays a huge role in how you manage your money. And a lot of times, if you don't feel secure financially, it sounds counterintuitive, but you're more likely to overspend because you're navigating your finances through emotion, and those emotions are not positive emotions. And you said, how would you
Yeah. How would you fix that habit if you realize that you potentially are an emotional spender? What could you do to fix that?
First thing, I always say you have to identify your spending triggers.
Mm,
What is triggering you to go out and always purchase these things? And if you look back through your spending, you're going to find what you spend the most money on because you're going to see these specific type of transactions pop up over and over, whether that's like McDonald's that keeps popping up or you have purchases that are pending from the mall. And then you have to think back on those transactions. Okay, what was happening around that time? What was I thinking? Your thoughts play a
hmm.
huge role. Your every purchase starts with a thought.
Yeah. I was about to say, you keep bringing up that mindset has a strong relationship with money. They're tied together, which I agree, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that if you want to go deeper.
Yeah. So every action really that we have starts with a thought, especially when it comes to spending. It could be that I'm bored. A lot of people spend when they're bored. A lot of people
Hmm.
spend when they're happy or when you've had a bad day at work. But if you don't recognize and pick up on that thought is going to continue to slip on by and it's going to become a habit. And you're just going to stay in this rotation where you keep doing something. You know you shouldn't be doing it, but
Hmm.
you haven't come up with established any ways to kind of redirect yourself. So after you identify what you're spending money on, what's triggering your spending, then you really have to be very mindful of your thought process. I always say
Mm.
allow space in between the purchase and your thoughts. So if you
Mm.
can squeeze out that time, when we're in Target, we see something and we're kind of feeling a little bit rushed. We don't give ourselves time, so we just grab it on
Yeah.
impulse and then purchase
Hmm.
it. If you can squeeze out at least 5 minutes in between your thought and that action, it allows time for your impulses to subside and then you
Hmm.
can think more logically. But if you do not narrow down on your thoughts that trigger a certain type of feeling and then an action, you're not going to be able to stop the end result, which is you going out and acquiring things.
That makes a lot of sense. I try my best to hold off on making any
Mm,
purchases until I really think about it and make sure that it's something I really want and really need to. So let's talk a little bit about kids. For those of us who are either preparing to have kids or have kids now, what are some expenses that you budget and save for?
So, number one is childcare. That seems
So
to
I've
be,
heard.
oh my goodness, that is number one, childcare. But also, what I found as I'm progressing through motherhood is that you should also budget, set up sinking funds for things like clothes and shoes. These kids grow like weeds, and it's
Yeah,
one
how
of
old are your kids?
they're 9, and he's about to be 5. So I have a 9 and a 5-year old.
Okay.
And I found that certain expenses kept popping up over and over, and I didn't have them in my budget. And so it would knock the whole budget off. And every time that happened, I would then go in and set up a sinking fund. So I have like
Mm.
10 million sinking funds for clothes.
Actually, wait, before we go any further, can you explain what a sinking fund is for anyone that doesn't know?
Yeah, so it's like a mini savings account, is the way I like to explain it, for a specific expense or purchase. So if you want to buy this Louis Vuitton bag, you would set up a sinking fund for that Louis Vuitton bag based on how much it costs. And then once you save up that amount, you would just cash out and buy your bag.
Hmm.
So that's what a sinking fund is. Or you can
Yeah.
have one that's ongoing. Most of mine are ongoing, like clothes. They're going to always need clothes. So I
Hmm.
just keep that open and keep throwing back amounts of money every so often.
Yeah. I love sinking
Yeah.
funds. I have one. A lot of people use them for like car insurance if they pay 6 months or once a year. You can do it for that. I have a sinking fund for my dog's grooming bill, my hair, nails. I keep them separate. That way the money's already there, so I don't feel guilty at all when I go and get my hair and nails
Exactly.
done.
Like call it like the guilt-free way to purchase what you want. And then once you
Hmm.
set one up, you're going to wind up with 5 million because it's
Right.
addicting. But expenses like that, like clothes and shoes, childcare, extracurricular activities, that was very important to me because for the longest time I suffered from mom guilt because I didn't have any money. Like I could not afford to get them to enroll them in anything extra. So that's
Hmm.
important for me. Their extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
School is always asking for money.
Of
And
course.
then, yeah, it comes up at the worst time. So
Hmm.
if they have a fundraiser or they need something at school, set that up. Back to school shopping. Anything that you notice, like things keep popping up out of your butt, set up a sinking fund for them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I know that you had your daughter at 21. Is that right? That was your first
Yes.
one, your daughter. So for anyone that's preparing to like save before having a kid, do you have a recommendation for how much money someone should save before having their baby?
So I did,
Because I've
I,
heard a lot of news about this, and I know childbirth, the whole
whew.
process is expensive. So I'm just like, for anyone that's preparing, getting ready to do this, what
Yeah.
would you recommend?
So I learned the hard way
Mm-hmm.
with my firstborn because I didn't know anything. But with my son, I was prepared. So I had my
Okay.
sinking fund for him before he was even born. So I would say what's extremely important is to understand your healthcare plan. If you
Mm.
have a high deductible healthcare plan, what is your deductible? And then what is your out of pocket cost after that? So some plans go, maybe you have a $2,000 deductible and then they go 80/20 after that. So you know you need at least $2,000
Mm-hmm.
first off bat before insurance starts paying for you. And so save the amount of your deductible at least, and then what you expect to be coming out of during maternity leave. Because depending on how long you're going to be gone, or is it going to have to kick into short-term disability where you don't get your full pay? That's one
Mm-hmm.
thing that I calculated too. So I added the deductible, what my paychecks would be after when the short-term disability kicked in, when I used up all of my PTO. And
Mm-hmm.
then I also added in the cost of my monthly expenses. So rent, car payment,
Right.
insurance. I knew how long I would be gone. I would be gone for about a month. So I saved up a
Mm-hmm.
month's worth of expenses, my deductible amount, and then what I needed to save to get to my regular paycheck amounts based on what they were going to be paying me in short-term disability. And that
Mm-hmm.
way, when you're on maternity leave, you don't have to rush yourself back to work. You can just really sit there
Yeah.
and relax.
Mm-hmm. As you should. It's kind of sad.
Oh
Maternity
my
leaves are so
gosh.
short these days. That's a whole nother conversation. But I guess in the US at least. I think other countries they have it better than
Oh yeah,
us.
they have it better than us in a lot of
So much.
areas.
Of course. Well, I know you shared that you hired your daughter to help with your business. So can you explain how that works logistically and the benefits of hiring your children?
Yes. So if you have a business, like a small business, and your child is old enough to actually perform tasks, I say hashtag hire them kids because the younger they are, the more time you have for money to start piling up for them. So I hired my daughter because I wanted her to have a custodial Roth IRA so we can get
Mm.
started on her wealth building. So depending on what your business is, just hire them for tasks that are age appropriate but also necessary to keep your business afloat, like going through emails. I have my daughter, she helps me set up the camera, like that's her job description, and taking my pictures and videos.
Nice. Oh my gosh. Love that.
And then they have earned income that you can start setting back for them, and that money, grows over time. So there are certain forms, you have to follow the child labor laws, but as long as you have them a job description, their compensation matches their tasks, and it's age appropriate, then I say it's a great way to start building wealth for your child early on.
You mentioned the custodial Roth, right?
Yes.
What other investment options are there for kids?
So there
And if
are
you can explain that
also
one too.
custodial accounts like UGMAs, Uniform Gifts to Minors Act, UTMAs too, but I think they're kind of running out. So that way, whenever you're saving, your money is invested in assets like stocks and bonds. We have the high yield savings account. They're not really high
Mm-hmm.
yielding right now.
No.
Five.
They need to get back. You need to get back
Yes.
up.
Let's go back. I mean, it's trying. I've seen it's trying. There's also 529 plans.
Oh yeah, I've heard about
The
these.
college savings plan, that's really
Hmm.
good. I don't we really don't know where education is going to go, but even
Yeah.
still, you can use it for tuition for like K through 12
Mm.
outside of higher education.
Okay.
And also there was another one. Oh, you can open up a brokerage for them.
Oh
A
wow, I didn't
brokerage
know that.
account. Yeah, and then kind of transfer the assets over to them that way. So there's a lot of different vehicles that you can use. I always say to kind of find which one best works for you. What is your main goal for the money that you're saving?
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
which account best aligns with that.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I know everyone always says, "Oh, I wish I could have been investing earlier," and now we can like have
Yeah.
our kids investing as children. So that's amazing. So something else that I really like that you talk about on your Instagram account, you've shared that women should ask the right questions in order to choose a partner that they are financially compatible with. Hot topic.
Hot topic.
Yeah, I think this is super important. So, what questions should we be asking during the dating phase, and why is that so important?
So first, I will say like don't lay it on them thick on the first date, right? You may not get a second date, but like as you're getting to know each other and the dates are increasing, you can start like turning up the heat on the questions. But I say a lot of us, we don't ask the right questions because we don't it kind of feels icky. We don't want to look like
Mm-hmm.
a gold digger or look rude. And so we get stuck with these people we're not financially compatible with, and it causes a lot of stress on the relationship, and it may leave you in a worse financial situation. And
Yeah.
so you want to make sure that your financial goals are going to align with whoever you attach yourself to because your partner
Mm-hmm.
plays a huge role. So some questions that I feel are important to ask is ask what is their perspective on debt, paying off debt and debt freedom. Like you don't want to lay them on the thick and talk about, well, I think da 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 da. Give that
Mm-hmm.
person an opportunity to share their perspective just so you can kind of sit back and be observant and kind of see where their head is at. Another question is how do you feel about joint and separate bank accounts? If it's important to you to have your own money on the side and
Mm-hmm.
then combine accounts for like something like bills, you want to have that discussion early on too because you don't want it to turn into something that's like an argument later on,
Yeah.
as well as their idea of generational wealth.
Mm.
Is this important to you? What are you doing right now to, build generational wealth? Or what is your
Mm-hmm.
perspective on it when it comes to children? Because children is something that we should ask in the beginning too. So when it
Yeah.
comes to your children, what are you going to do to set them up financially? If that's important to you, you want to make sure it's important to your partner also.
Mm-hmm.
And I say a really one thing that's really good to ask them if you want to kind of gauge how their spending is.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask them questions like, what do they like to spend money on? If it's clothes, shoes, da 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 da, you're gonna eventually notice it, but give them an
Yeah.
opportunity to say it. And then if that doesn't align with what you value and spend money on, and you don't think there's any common ground, then that leaves you the opportunity to decide if you want to pursue dating
Mm-hmm.
situation with this person.
You're right. Your partner is one of the most important decisions you will make financially and for your future children. So, yeah, I appreciate those tips as somebody that is not married yet, but definitely asking the right questions.
Good. Me too, sister.
Well, before we wrap up, there's one question that I ask all of my guests. What is the most important money lesson you've learned that you think would be helpful for our audience to know?
Most important money lesson. Ooh, that's a good one. I always go back to mindset. That is
Mm,
the top dog to me. I wish I would have known that the space I was operating out of mentally was affecting my financial decisions. Because I think I would have
yeah.
been able to stop my emotional spending a lot sooner so that I wasn't struggling with so much credit card debt if I would have known to tap into that.
Mm-hmm. Are there any resources that have helped you, develop your money mindset?
Good old Google, girl. Me and Google are
There's
BFFs.
plenty of resources out here these days. Yeah. Great. Well, thanks again. Can you let listeners know where they can find you online?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Money Boss Mama, and you can find me on YouTube at Diana with a Y Marie.
Thanks for tuning in to the First Hustle Then Brunch podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or learned something new, I'd love if you subscribed and left us a review. Another way to support the podcast is to take a screenshot of this episode and share it on your Instagram story. Tag me at First Hustle Then Brunch so I can repost it. Thank you so much for supporting the show, and I'll see you in the next episode.